The galaxy had been a void for millions of years, slowly taking shape. Every star, every planet, every life form had taken its place, each one a part of an infinite universe. But for humankind, this void was not just a place of discovery, disappointments, and eventual transformation. It was the map of a destiny yet to unfold. The farthest corners of this universe were where humans reached, pushing the boundaries of evolution with each step they took. Yet, humanity could never escape the burdens of its past. Countless years of struggles, losses, and devastations had passed, but there was still an eerie feeling that something was wrong, that the journey wasn't truly over. Humans, now scattered across the galaxy, seemed to carry the weight of old wounds, even as they searched for new worlds. Their ambitions, their wars, their disappointments, each echoing in the far reaches of the cosmos. But once, humanity had wielded immense power, leaving an indelible mark on the galaxy. Now, however, that power seemed lost, diminished, drifting away in the vastness of space. For generations, the great governments and galactic rulers had adopted a pattern, a way of life, a society that, in its search for meaning and stability, had erased the chaos of the past, burying the deepest secrets. But there remained one small group: scientists, explorers, archivists who believed that this new order was but a veil covering something much darker, a force lurking within the galaxy's fabric, waiting to return. The most remote colonies, the forgotten settlements on the edges of space, became the gathering points for those seeking the truth. But no one knew exactly what they were searching for: an ancient artifact, an energy source, or perhaps even a forgotten civilization. Regardless of their differing motives, they all moved with a sense of urgency, drawn towards something unseen. While the most powerful fleets and empires of the galaxy had learned to live in a semblance of peace, even complacency, one group of explorers was about to change everything. They weren't just looking for lost technology, they were unearthing the keys to unraveling the galaxy's greatest mystery. The truth, hidden beneath layers of forgotten ruins, old star maps, and broken devices, would challenge everything humanity had once believed about their place in the universe. But this journey wasn't just about discovery, it was about a rebirth. A rebirth of civilization, of history, and of the future. The galaxy, as it stood, was fragile, and if this truth was unleashed, it could either lead humanity to their greatest rise, or their complete annihilation. The path ahead was clear, yet treacherous. The truth about the galaxy, long buried under centuries of lost civilizations, was within reach, and the journey was about to begin, this time, with no turning back. As the explorers ventured deeper into the heart of the galaxy, a sense of unease settled over the crew. This was no longer just a mission to uncover ancient relics, it had become something much more. They were not merely hunting for artifacts buried in the dirt of forgotten worlds. They were hunting for answers to a question that had haunted humanity for eons. What happened to the ancient civilizations that once ruled the galaxy? Captain Elara Rayne stood at the helm of the ship Solace, staring at the endless stars before her. The mission was dangerous, even reckless. The coordinates they followed were centuries old, passed down through secret texts and whispers in the dark corners of the galaxy. Few believed the story, fewer still dared to follow it, but Elara knew something that no one else did. This wasn't a myth. This was real. The galaxy had once been ruled by a power so vast, so overwhelming, that it could have controlled not just space but time itself. Her crew, a mix of seasoned veterans and young idealists, had pledged their lives to uncovering this forgotten truth. They weren't just risking their lives, they were risking their futures. For this knowledge, if found, would change everything. It could give humanity an unprecedented power to reshape the galaxy, but it could also be a weapon of unimaginable destruction if it fell into the wrong hands. The Solace was moving toward a distant star system, where an ancient race, known as the Eldris, had once thrived. Little was known about them, except They were believed to have vanished mysteriously, leaving only ruins behind. But legends told of an artifact they left behind, crystal capable of manipulating gravity, bending space, and even altering time. This crystal, known as the Eternus Shard, was rumored to be the key to unlocking the galaxy's deepest secrets. Elara had heard the rumors before, but the more she learned, the more certain she became that this was their only chance. They had to find the Eternus Shard before anyone else did. If the empires and factions of the galaxy got to it first, the consequences would be dire. With the power of the shard, they could become unstoppable. As they entered the star system, they encountered the first signs of danger. The planet they were headed for, Thalassen, was a desolate rock with nothing but ancient ruins to its name. Yet, as the Solace dropped out of warp, Elara's crew immediately noticed something unusual. The atmosphere was charged, as if a massive storm was about to break. Their scanners detected strange energy readings emanating from the planet's surface. "Captain, there's something down there," Lieutenant Marcus Haynes reported. "It's not just energy, it's alive, almost like a pulse." A deep, guttural sound echoed through the ship's hull. The crew looked around, confused. This wasn't the sound of a storm. It was something else, something far more ominous. "Prepare to land," Elara ordered, her voice steady, but tinged with a sense of urgency. "We need to find the source of that pulse. It's connected to the Eternus Shard. I can feel it." As the Solace descended toward the surface, Elara's heart raced. She knew they were on the verge of something monumental. But what lay below the surface? Was it the key to the galaxy's future or its destruction? The ship touched down on the barren landscape, and the crew suited up, preparing for the unknown. They could feel the weight of history pressing down on them as they walked toward the ancient ruins, their footsteps echoing in the silence. The ruins were vast, towering monoliths that seemed to stretch for miles, their surfaces covered in strange symbols. The pulse grew stronger as they neared the central structure. Elara's breath caught in her throat as they entered the ruins, the air thick with the energy of the past. It felt as though the very fabric of space was vibrating around them. The Eternus Shard was close, she could feel it. But then, as they rounded a corner, they were met with a terrifying sight. A vast chamber, its walls lined with strange machines, and at the center, a massive, crystalline structure, pulsing with an unnatural energy. It was the Eternus Shard. But there was something wrong. As the crew approached it, they noticed dark figures standing at its base, figures that had been waiting for them. The moment Elara's eyes locked onto the shadowy figures at the base of the Eternus Shard, her instincts kicked in. Her hand reached instinctively for her blaster, but she hesitated. These figures, clad in ancient armor that shimmered with a faint, ethereal glow, were unlike anything she had ever seen. They weren't quite human, nor were they of any known species. Their forms were blurred, shifting in and out of focus, as though they existed in a state between dimensions. A voice, deep and resonant, filled the chamber. It wasn't a voice they could hear with their ears, but one that seemed to reverberate in their minds. "You are not welcome here." Elara stepped forward, unflinching, her voice calm but commanding. "We've come for the Eternus Shard. We mean no harm. We only seek knowledge." The figures did not move, yet the tension in the air grew thick, oppressive. The pulse from the shard intensified, vibrating through the walls and the floor beneath them. Each step they took seemed to make the chamber's walls press in tighter, as though the very structure of the ruins was alive and aware of their presence. "The shard is not meant for those who do not understand it." The voice was colder this time, filled with ancient wisdom. "You seek to control what was never meant to be controlled. The balance will be broken." Elara took a deep breath, sensing the rising fear among her crew. This was no mere relic they had uncovered. This was something far older, far more dangerous. The Eternus Shard wasn't just a powerful artifact. It was a force of nature itself, a tool capable of manipulating the fundamental laws of the universe. We don't wish to control it, Elara said softly, her voice barely a whisper. We just want to unlock its potential. We need to understand what it is. The shadows shifted, and one of the figures took a step forward. It was a tall being, humanoid in form, but with a face that seemed to be made of shifting shadows, its eyes glowing with a fierce intensity. You have no idea what you are asking for. The figure's voice was like thunder, shaking the very air around them. The Eternus Shard has been dormant for eons. Its true power has been sealed away, kept hidden to preserve the balance of the cosmos. To awaken it is to awaken a force that even the ancients could not control. Elara's heart raced. She had always known that this mission was fraught with danger, but nothing could have prepared her for this. These beings, guardians perhaps, or remnants of a lost civilization, had been placed here for a reason. They weren't just protectors. They were sentinels, standing watch over a force that could change the fabric of reality itself. We have to try, Elara said, more to herself than to the others. Humanity deserves the chance to reach its full potential. We have to unlock this power. We won't be able to defeat the galaxy's rising threats without it. The Guardian shifted, its form becoming clearer, solidifying into a figure that was both terrifying and magnificent. Its armor glowed with a strange energy, and it spoke again, this time with a tone that seemed to pierce into Elara's very soul. You seek to wield the power of the shard, but what you do not understand is that it does not belong to you. It is not a tool. It is a burden, a curse. Before Elara could respond, the ground beneath them trembled. The shard pulsed violently, and the air crackled with energy. The Guardians began to move, their bodies blurring as they surrounded the crew. Their voices filled the chamber, a chorus of warnings, their words mingling into a low hum that resonated deep within the crew's chests. Leave now, or you will face the consequences. Elara's mind raced. She couldn't back down now, not after everything they had gone through to get here. But the force of the Guardians was undeniable, and they had no idea what they were truly up against. Prepare yourselves, Elara whispered to her crew. We're not leaving without the shard. The chamber was now alive with energy pulsing, with a rhythm that seemed to belong to the very heart of the galaxy itself. The Eternus Shard, bathed in an unnatural light, called to them, its power now palpable in the air. Elara's crew, standing shoulder to shoulder, braced for what was to come. They had ventured too far to turn back, but the sense of danger was now overwhelming. This was no longer just a discovery, it was an awakening. The Guardians moved as one, their form shifting between dimensions, becoming both visible and intangible at once. They raised their arms, and the air seemed to crack under the weight of their presence. The temperature in the chamber plummeted, and the crew's breath became visible in the chilling air. You do not understand the price of your ambition, Captain Rayne, the lead Guardian, intoned, its voice echoing in the minds of every member of the crew. The shard holds the power to rewrite reality, but such power cannot be controlled by mortals. It will destroy you. Elara's hand gripped the hilt of her weapon, but she knew this battle wouldn't be won through force alone. These were beings older than the stars themselves, guardians of knowledge so ancient it made even the galaxies around them seem young. They had been placed here to protect something that transcended time, something that could bend the very laws of the universe. We do understand. Elara's voice rang clear, her eyes locked on the shifting shadows. We understand that the future of humanity depends on unlocking this power. We've already faced extinction. We've already lost everything. We have nothing left to fear. Her words echoed in the chamber, and for a moment, the Guardians paused. The shimmer of their forms flickered, as though they were considering her declaration. The Eternus Shard pulsed louder, the resonance vibrating through the ground beneath them. The crew tensed, preparing for whatever was about to come. But then, in a flash of blinding light, the Guardians charged. In an instant, the crew was plunged into chaos. The Guardians moved with a terrifying speed, each strike a blur of energy and shadow. The ground cracked under the force of their movements, and the walls of the chamber seemed to tremble in fear. Elara ducked under a sweeping arc of energy, rolling to the side as another Guardian launched an attack directly at her. The force of it sent her sprawling, but she quickly regained her footing. "We will not allow you to awaken the shard," the lead Guardian roared, its voice reverberating through the chamber. It raised its arms, and an energy field enveloped the entire room, distorting the very fabric of space around them. Elara's crew fought back with all their might, but they were outmatched. The Guardians were no mere opponents. They were living manifestations of an ancient will, and their power was beyond anything the humans had ever encountered. But just as hope seemed lost, something shifted. The Eternus Shard, reacting to the energy around it, began to glow brighter. The vibrations from the crystal became more intense, sending waves of energy across the room. It was as though the shard itself was alive, feeding off the conflict, preparing to release its full power. "It's happening," shouted Lieutenant Marcus Haynes, his voice filled with both awe and terror. "It's awakening." Elara felt the pull of the shard deep within her. It was not just a physical force. It was something that resonated with her very soul. The knowledge, the power, it was within her reach. But as she reached out, she felt the Guardians tightening their grip, pushing her away. "You cannot control what was never meant to be controlled," the lead Guardian said, its voice softer, now almost mournful. "The cost will be greater than you can imagine." In that instant, Elara knew what had to be done. The power of the shard wasn't just about control, it was about understanding. The truth wasn't in wielding its power. It was in becoming one. "With it we won't fight you," Elara spoke, her voice calm but firm, a sense of finality in her words. "We will unlock the shard, not to dominate but to understand. The galaxy needs this knowledge. Humanity needs it." The Guardians hesitated, their forms flickering, as though conflicted. For a moment, there was silence and understanding passing. Between them, the shard pulsed once more, the vibrations now a steady hum. Then, with a deep breath, Elara stepped forward, her hand reaching out to touch the Eternus Shard. The moment her fingers brushed the surface, a surge of energy exploded through the room, sending a shockwave of force that knocked everyone back. The shockwave from the Eternus Shard's activation sent ripples through the very fabric of space itself. The chamber trembled violently as the crystal's power surged outward, enveloping everything in its path. Elara felt a sharp, searing pain in her chest as the energy coursed through her, overwhelming her senses. The walls of the ancient ruin warped and twisted, as the laws of reality began to bend and break. It was as though time itself was unraveling. For a brief moment, Elara's vision blurred. She saw the stars in the sky shift, their light bending like liquid across the darkness of space. Time seemed to fracture before her eyes, moments and memories swirling in a vortex of chaotic energy. She saw flashes of history, visions of the ancient civilization that had once wielded the shard, their rise and eventual fall. She saw the galaxy in its entirety, every star, every planet, each one interconnected by the power of the Eternus Shard. But then, she saw something else, something darker. The galaxy, torn apart by war, by greed, by factions all vying for control, was hurtling toward an inevitable collapse. In every vision she saw, the same truth was revealed. No matter how hard humanity tried, they were destined to repeat the same mistakes. The cycle of power, conflict, and destruction was a part of the universe itself, something that could not be escaped. "No, this is not our fate," Elara whispered to herself, the realization dawning on her. As the visions faded, Elara found herself back in the chamber, her hand still resting on the shard. The energy had settled, but the consequences were clear. The Guardians were no longer in sight, but their presence lingered like an echo in the air. The Eternus Shard was still glowing, but now it was dimmer, its energy calmer, almost as if it were waiting. Her crew, still stunned by the blast, slowly regained consciousness and began to rise. Marcus was the first to speak, his voice hoarse with shock. "Captain, what just happened?" Elara stood, her legs unsteady, as she pulled herself to her feet. She had seen the truth, at least part of it. The power of the shard was not something to be controlled, but rather something that was meant to be understood. It was a force that connected all things in the universe, a tool to see the past, the present, and the future. But it was also a force that demanded sacrifice. She knew then that the fate of the galaxy was not just in their hands, it was in their minds. "We need to leave," Elara said, her voice calm but resolute. "The shard has given us the knowledge we need, but we cannot stay here any longer. This place is a prison for a reason." The crew began to gather around her, the weight of her words settling in. They had uncovered a power far beyond anything they had imagined. And yet, there was a deep uncertainty in their hearts. What would they do with this power? Could they truly harness it without falling into the same trap that had claimed so many civilizations before them? As the crew made their way back to the Solace, Elara paused for a moment, her gaze lingering on the Eternus Shard one last time. The energy had calmed, but she knew that the shard's true power had not yet fully revealed itself. It was a tool, but also a burden. And now, with the knowledge of its existence, Elara felt the weight of that burden settle upon her shoulders. The universe was about to change. Humanity had unlocked the door to unimaginable power, but the question remained: would they be able to wield it without destroying themselves in the process? The journey home would not be the end. It was just the beginning. The Solace ascended from the surface of Thalassen, the ancient ruins below fading into the distance. The crew, though physically unscathed, felt the weight of their mission settling heavily upon them. The shimmering glow of the Eternus Shard, now safely contained within the ship's reinforced vault, seemed to pulse faintly through the walls of the command deck. Its presence was undeniable, yet its purpose remained unclear. Elara stood at the helm, her hands gripping the controls, though her mind was elsewhere. The visions she had witnessed while touching the shard lingered, their implications unsettling. The future of humanity, the galactic balance, everything was tied to this power, this gift, and curse. They had the knowledge to change the course of history, but that knowledge came with a dire warning. The cycle of destruction and rebirth would repeat unless they broke it. But how could they? The Solace moved swiftly through the stars, back toward human-controlled space. But even as they charted their course, a growing tension hung in the air. What awaited them when they returned? The factions, the empires, they wouldn't simply let this power slip away without a fight. They knew what the Eternus Shard represented, and they would come for it, just as they had fought over everything else. Humanity might have survived the initial push to uncover the shard, but the real battle was only just beginning. "Captain," Marcus's voice broke through her thoughts. "We're approaching the outer edges of the Solara cluster. We'll be in Federation territory in a few hours." Elara nodded but said nothing. The Federation would be their first obstacle, a coalition of planets that had long served as the beacon of order in the galaxy. The Federation had a long history of intervening in affairs they deemed too dangerous for the galaxy. The shard would certainly draw their attention, but would they see it as a threat or an opportunity? "What's our plan when we get back?" Marcus pressed, sensing the hesitation in Elara's voice. Elara's eyes narrowed as she looked out to the vast stretch of space before them. She had been thinking about this for days. The knowledge they had gained could make humanity the most powerful force in the galaxy, but it could also undo everything they had fought for. It wasn't just about defeating the empires or gaining control of the shard. It was about ensuring that humanity didn't repeat the same destructive mistakes of the past. "We'll have to keep the shard hidden," Elara finally said, "until we can understand its true potential and its true cost. We can't let anyone else get their hands on it. The Federation will want it, and so will the others. We need to buy time. The crew, though still reeling from their discovery, nodded in agreement. They all knew that the path forward was fraught with danger. But Elara's resolve was unwavering. They had come this far not to conquer but to understand. And now, with the knowledge of the shard, they had the power to shape the galaxy in ways that no one had ever imagined. As they entered Federation space, their comms crackled to life, the voice of a Federation officer demanding their coordinates. Elara's mind raced. This was at the moment of reckoning. Captain Rayne, the officer's voice came through again, colder now. You are requested to dock immediately. You are carrying a highly classified and dangerous artifact. We need to discuss its implications. Elara's heart skipped a beat. The Federation had always maintained strict control over anything that could disrupt the balance of the galaxy. The Shard was no different. She knew that if they didn't act quickly, they would be forced into a situation they couldn't escape. We're not docking, Elara said firmly, her voice carrying the weight of authority. We have important matters to attend to. We'll communicate with you once we're ready. The officer's response was swift and laced with threat. You will regret this decision, Captain. The Federation will not let this stand. The comms went silent. Elara turned to her crew, their faces filled with determination. This was the moment they had been preparing for. The Solus's engines roared to life as they veered away from the Federation's line of sight, entering a new course that would take them deeper into the unknown reaches of space. As the Solus drifted further into uncharted space, Elara stood silently, her thoughts consumed with the enormity of their mission. The Shard's power was unmatched, and its consequences unforeseeable. The Federation, the Empires, every force in the galaxy would soon be coming after them. They would need to be ready. But in the back of her mind, a single thought echoed. Was humanity truly prepared for the responsibility of the Eternus Shard? Could they wield its power without losing themselves in the process? Only time would tell. But for now, they had a single goal: to keep the Shard safe, and to make sure that its dark history would not become their future.